Well, hey, America. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report. We're broadcasting live, actually, from the studios of PRN Radio Network, the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America. Hey, Watchmen. Today's Monday, March 30th, 2015. It's 8 p.m. on the East Coast. I'm your host, Anne Moretti, and my cool co-host, Scott Ferrarello, is here with me. And we're happy you're here with us, too. Thank you. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at PRN, are open for you. In the chats, you'll find some of our great colleagues like Lynn, Famous Anna, AstroTurf. They're kind enough to man the chats and put the links to all our reports and other information and documents in the chats as a courtesy. Our colleagues are also researchers, journalists, bloggers, analysts. You may even run into a few more of our colleagues there, too, so please say hi to each other. And thank you, ladies. Today we have a busy show lined up. There's big news breaking all over the place. We may even have our medical correspondent call in if she chooses to do so for one of our stories. I wanted to bring you an update on this German pilot. But anyhow, we'll get right to that after I do a short disclaimer, and that's just to let everybody know that, the things that are said on this show are my responsibility. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, either in past, present, or even future broadcasts. All right, well, now that that's out of the way, let me find Scott over here on this switchboard, and I'll give him a proper introduction, and then we'll start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Ferrarello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, you sound like you're in a good mood. Hope you had a nice weekend.
Yeah, it was lovely as always.
Yeah, well, we got
but
a ton. Go ahead.
I just turn the news off, and it's amazing. I'm just in a better mood because I don't have to read 7,000 negative stories a day.
Well, we're going to finish today with a decent story, so I got one to cheer you up after we go through the news tonight. We also, like I mentioned in the opening, that I have a story about this pilot, the German pilot, and hopefully our correspondent will be tuning in for that, but that'll be in a couple of stories here. I'm looking through my list here as we got it. All right, it'll be the third story. So, anyhow, anything you want to bring up before we begin the show? You want to just jump right in, baby?
We can jump in. Are you doing anything on the Fort Lauderdale drill at all?
Well, we could. I didn't have it printed up, but of course we can bring it up. Actually, I have exactly the spot to put it in. So, yeah, we'll do that. You can lead that one, too, by the way, because, I'm not so sure I'm opposed to it, but I'm not so sure I like it either, so we'll talk about that. Anyhow, there was great big news today over at Fort Meade in D.C. A couple of guys in a black Ford were gate crashers at the NSA. I mean, if you're going to crash a gate, NSA is probably not the best place to do it. The men were dressed as women, and they were shot outside the NSA gate. They tried to ram past the checkpoint, the officials say. Yahoo News had one good lineup. It wasn't too long, but it has a good details in it. It says, one man is dead and another severely injured after a shootout at one of the main gates of the National Security Agency located at Fort Meade, Maryland. Two men, dressed as women, attempted to penetrate the entry point with their vehicle when a shootout occurred. There are indications they were dressed as females, an officer said. At least one officer suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Aerial images from the news helicopter on the scene appear to show two damaged SUVs. One perpetrator is confirmed dead on the scene. The other is severely injured and is not likely to survive, according to one official. As you know, the first thing they say right out of their mouths, the FBI says they don't believe the incident is related to terrorism. Law enforcement say that there is initial indicators the vehicle used by one of the suspects was stolen. The FBI evidence response team is on the scene investigating and testing for possible presence of drugs. The incident's being investigated by FBI, NSA police, and Army Criminal Investigations. also Anne Arundel Police and Maryland State Police are also on the scene assisting. Meanwhile, Obama has been briefed on the incident, according to the White House spokesman Eric Schultz. Now, dressed as women, they didn't say if they were in dress and pantyhose and spike heels or if they were in a burqa. So, they're telling us that it isn't terrorism, but they don't even know that yet. I mean, it just happens. Oh, it's not terrorism. Well, how do you know? Our listeners here on this show know how easily these people are converted, and, they go for the crazy ones. So this would be pretty crazy. We don't know all the details.
Yeah, when I first heard about it, I thought it could be Rachel Maddow and Rosie O'Donnell, but, it could be any...
Yeah, well, I've been hearing bits and pieces, You know how we do here pieces of stories, too, that aren't actually in the news. But I got a couple of phone calls, and it said that they might have been angry at the NSA's spying, and there may have been a phone call either prior to or following the incident claiming responsibility or claiming it was going to happen, whatever. There was a phone call involved. So, that's direct from sources. I don't have an article to link to that, but our correspondents and people around the country have been telling us things like that. So I don't know what to make of it. I know that it was really stupid. I mean, you go right to the NSA?
I don't know. Do they have a budget vote or something coming up, something to justify their bloated, unconstitutional budget?
Well, I know that area is very, very secure. When I was up there visiting, I was told that a family member had a flat tire just outside the entranceway there. Before she could even get out to check the tire, she was surrounded by cops. And they told her, don't get out of the car. And she was explaining to them, my tire just went flat and I got a car full of kids here, and what am I going to do? She said no more than a minute later there was a tow truck already hitching her up. So, that is like a high enforcement area. We've talked about it, all the cameras and the intense security up there. So I don't think that would be the best place to pull it, unless you just wanted attention. It was definitely a suicide mission. You go to crash that gate, you're not coming back. And they obviously weren't very good planners. So...
Oh, boy, I don't know. It's hard to tell. There's so many fringe groups coming across the border now, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah, I'm getting a message from our colleague. It says, hotel partying preceded the deadly shooting at the NSA gate. Sources say hotel partying. So maybe they were partying, got drunk, I don't know. Maybe they didn't even intend to crash the gate. Maybe they just were way messed up, and I don't know. But why dress like women? It's, nothing's fitting in this scenario. I also know from our sources up in...
Sister tour in the area at all, or...
I don't know.
Bunch of guys dressed like women, partying, and I don't know. It's anybody's guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but it just sounds really weird to me. Nothing's fitting in this scenario. I mean, even if you're drunk or high, you're going to dress up in a skirt and go and try to crash the gate at the NSA? Do you have, a plan, an exit plan, or what you're going to do once you get on the other side of the gate? What was the plan here?
People do crazy things when they're hammered, It sounds perfectly, it always seems perfectly logical at the time when you're drunk and you have an idea, and the next day you think, oh, my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah, really. Well, one of them's not thinking anything. Actually, both of them are not thinking anything. The second one's not expected to survive. So that's where we're at right now. If we get any further details on that, we'll definitely let you know. But from our sources up in D.C., everything was locked down. They said the Navy base up there was also locked down. There were cops everywhere. They had the hazmat people out and staging and all that, in case it wasn't just a one-off. So I think I'd be disappointed if they didn't, go on to high alert. Something happens at one, you don't know if they're trying to draw all your resources over there so they can pull crap at another location. So until everything is figured out, everybody's a suspect, I suppose. But, yeah, that's what's going on up in D.C. Out in Fresno, I don't know if you guys saw the video of that poor firefighter that fell through the roof. Guys, say a prayer for this dude. From News 10 Fresno, a Fresno firefighter is in critical condition after he fell through a roof of a burning garage yesterday afternoon. It says Fire Chief Kerry Donis said out of the wishes of the injured firefighter's family, the department was not going to be releasing his name. However, Donis said the firefighter is a 25-year veteran. She said he had suffered burns to nearly 70% of his body, with 40% of his body suffering third-degree burns. The burns were mostly on his face, hands, and legs. Todd Tuggle, the Fresno City Fire Battalion chief who was at the scene, said the firefighter was on the roof of the garage as part of a standard procedure of sounding out the roof. The firefighter who was injured went on the roof with a second firefighter trailing behind. The initial firefighter who fell went up with a tool, and Tuggle said the roof gave way. Donna said he was in the burning garage for close to 3 minutes. That fire burnt over 600 degrees. So just say a prayer for this guy. He is expected to make it, but he's in critical condition right now. And you know that poor man is one hurt in the unit. All right, now, here's the story that I was telling you about that maybe our correspondent will call in. Actually, I see our correspondent has her hand raised, so I will get right to you. But I wanted to tell you about this German pilot. There's more information coming out. First, they said that he was being treated for retinitis and detached retina. He was freaked out about that because, even since he was a kid, he wanted to be a pilot. Also, this guy has been treated numerous times for depression, and they were giving him a drug. I'm going to open up our correspondent's microphone, and I'm going to bring her in. Hello, you.
Hey.
Hey. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen?
You can say my name
JoJo.
now because it's in politics.
This is JoJo. You all remember her. She was our former co-host, and she's now our medical correspondent. Let me read this to you, and then, JoJo, if you would you tell me about this drug? It says, German pilot received an injection of an antipsychotic drug. The revelations continue to multiply on Andreas Lubitz. He's head of the crash of the A320 Germanwings from last Tuesday. Many newspapers have a desire to know more about the treatment that followed the co-pilot. According to Le Parisien this morning and several German newspapers, Andreas Lubitz was prescribed an atypical antipsychotic drug called olanzapine, or Zyprexa. And it's an antidepressant. Another one, it's called algomelatine, or valdoxin. Psychiatrists find undoubtedly such treatment is totally incompatible with piloting of an aircraft. Both drugs are also the subject of a con-indication for driving. So if you can't drive, you can't fly a plane. So it's for treatment of schizophrenia, manic episodes, and sometimes preventing reoccurring episodes of mania. All right, JoJo, take it away.
Well, Zyprexa is commonly used, especially like in psych hospitals. And most people that are on a Zyprexa prescription are pretty severely mentally ill, for lack of a better word. Now, in this article, it said that he had a Zyprexa shot injection in 2010. Well, if that was his last injection, then that didn't play a part in crash. But it plays a part in putting this all together to figure out how mentally disabled he was. Zyprexa is a strong drug, and it's given in injection form for only an acute setting, acute illness or acute presentation, like extreme mania, violence, someone that is there's no way you can talk them down or anything. Acute episodes of schizophrenia, and like someone's become real violent and you cannot control them in any way, you'll give them Zyprexa. Now, from what I know, you would not start with Zyprexa for your common first-line antidepressant drug. There's so many out there. Most doctors would start with something milder.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, what we don't know yet is he been on it since 2010? Is he taking it like daily, taking the pill daily? So this could lead him into several diagnoses: bipolar, schizophrenia, I doubt really seriously they're just giving him Zyprexa for depression. Certainly no way we can do that. But just from what I know about Zyprexa, there's just too many other antidepressants common depression. You know what I mean? But
well, the girl that broke up with him the day before said that he was depressed very often, and what was that? He had a note on him, a doctor's note saying that he couldn't fly that day. So he might have, who knows? Go ahead.
But there's also, when you take strong antipsychotics like this, you get something called extrapyramidal symptoms. It's called EPS. And it can cause a lot of severe problems if you have a type of reaction to it. Your tongue can swell where you can't talk. You get the pseudoparkinsonism type symptom where you draw up and you look kind of like you got Parkinson's. And, you have to have some immediate relief with some injections of different other drugs to counteract that.
I've heard stories of people who are on these type of drugs, and they start feeling normal, so they decide that they don't need them anymore, and then that's where they run into trouble. I'm wondering if maybe that might have been an effect. How do those drugs work when you're detoxing from them?
Oh, well, you can't stop an antidepressant. It's not so much that you detox from it, so to speak, in those type of words. But you cannot stop overnight any antidepressant. You have to wean yourself off of it under a doctor's care. You can't just wake up one morning and decide not to take it anymore. Now let's go back to the injection. People that are non-compliant with their meds, which a lot of mentally ill people are, the very reason you said, they think because the antidepressant makes them feel better, so they think they're feeling better, they're back to normal, they don't need the antidepressant anymore. So what they do with people with severe schizophrenia and severe mental illnesses, they will give them a routine shot, like every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever the prescription is. And they will have to get the shot to manage their symptoms and their mental illness because they won't take the pills like they're supposed to. But you only see that in some severe cases. So,
how could he mask something like that all this time that his coworkers and his employer did not know or recognize that he had these issues? I know he had taken a 6-month break.
My best guess is he was taking his medicine like he was supposed to, and he wouldn't have had to mask it because it would have stabilized him and kind of made his mood level. If he's bipolar, his mood's either real up or real down, and the medicine kind of puts you in the middle, so to speak.
Wow.
Your mood. So maybe he was taking it regularly. But, with all the events that happened with his girlfriend and the note and this, that, and the other, I mean, we'll probably really never know unless his girlfriend maybe lived with him and knew for a fact he took it regularly or not or whatever. So a lot of people, patients with mental illness also have to have a caregiver or a caretaker to monitor their medicines, to give them the medicines, to make sure they're taking the medicine. It's a whole lot different than somebody just running around here with high blood pressure or something, as far as taking your blood pressure pill every day or taking your heart pill every day or whatever. This psych is a whole different ballgame of medicine.
Yeah, well, I see things, advertisements on TV for like Wellbutrin and Chantix for helping you quit smoking, and those are in this family of drugs. And it tells you it could cause suicidal tendencies, abnormal thoughts, side effects like that.
Yep.
You're right, maybe he was having a reaction, and it
well,
could be,
but
maybe not.
Him having a reaction while flying the plane wouldn't make any sense either, because that wouldn't have allowed him to lock the pilot out. That wouldn't have made him write the note. All this was kind of pre-planned. So I would kind of throw the EPS out the window. I don't think it was EPS.
Yeah.
But I think, first of all, let me say this. This is a JoJo opinion. Everybody wants to say he was suicidal. He wasn't suicidal. He was homicidal. Suicidal is when you kill yourself. When you kill 150 people, that's homicide. That's murder. Big difference.
That's right.
You can't go around saying, "Oh, poor guy was suicidal." No. People that strap bombs on their chest and walk in a mall aren't suicidal. They're murderers.
These are psychotropic drugs.
Yes.
I mean, it says right on the insert, may have suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, anger, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is what's behind most of these whack jobs that are just snapping and shooting, crowds of people. And they won't say they're on SSRI drugs.
They're either on them and aren't taking them properly, or they need to be on them. I mean, I don't know. It's the chicken or the egg,
Yeah.
But people with just common everyday depression, in my opinion, don't really need a psychotic type drug for normal depression, because every human being gets depressed from time to time. People with clinical depression, chronic depression, bipolar, people that are truly symptomatically, clinically depressed. That's not your everyday person that has a bad week. If your dog dies or your husband dies or your mama dies or something, you're supposed to be depressed. Not supposed to. And that's called coping skills. You have to work through everyday life, things that bother you, things that depress you. Maybe, you're whatever. Everybody in the world has problems. But you have to learn, it's part of the learning process of adulthood, I guess, is you learn how to cope with problems so you don't need to be on medicine for every little thing.
What about long-term use on those drugs? Do they have a physical effect on you, or even a psychological effect? Does it build up in your system? Does it affect your kidneys and liver? And, if you're juggling them and you're not sure you want them and your life is falling apart, I don't know. And if he's having injections,
what they do? They rewire your brain. I mean, I was taking all kinds of antidepressant drugs for a while, and the more I took, and the stronger ones they gave you, the more depressed I got, the more miserable I got. I finally said, I'm not taking these anymore. They said, well, you better not quit taking them. You're going to go insane or something really bad's going to happen to you.
Wow.
I said, well, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out myself. And
now we know what happens, Scott.
I started taking a little less dosage at a time. I took, like a fourth less for a month, and then another fourth less the next month until I didn't have to take him anymore. And I haven't taken one of those in 12 years.
I know, we can tell.
No, you didn't know me before, so you can
say that.
Scott,
I'm just picking on you, but you did it right.
They wanted me on these for life, and they told me so. You're going to take this for the rest of your life, and I
when you have adult behavioral problem?
No, I just did it because a counselor advised it, and my sister was pushing it. And, since she's one of these libtards with the PhD and everything, I trusted her like a fool. Well, you know what? It was the worst thing I ever did in my life was take this crap.
I don't really know the half-life of Zyprexa, but in the psych hospital, Zyprexa is used a lot in acute care settings. So, I mean, I've seen people I've taken care of for 5 or 6, 7 years that's been on Zyprexa. Whether it's made them worse or better, I really couldn't tell you. But from what I've seen, in the acute care setting, they needed it. So, every patient's different. That's why in the acute care setting in a psych hospital, the patients are monitored daily by the doctor. Their medicines are monitored daily, and that's one reason why. It's because it's very important that their medicines are monitored very closely for all these reasons we've been talking about today.
Yeah, I don't want them. I don't want them piloting my plane or driving my kids to school.
Nope,
if you're going to drug test them for marijuana, and you're not going to hire a bus driver because he might smoke marijuana on the weekend, well, you know what? I don't want some bipolar psychopath taking Zoloft. Because I've seen that up close and personal. Someone who is a bipolar who decided they weren't going to take Zoloft anymore and just quit cold turkey, and they turned into a psychopath.
There's a big difference between Zoloft and Zyprexa. Huge.
I saw somebody lose their mind coming off of Clonopins. I think that was the name of them. Boy, that person went completely bonkers.
Clonopins are benzodiazepine, and you will withdraw badly coming off of that.
Yeah.
So, That's a whole different classification of drugs. Clonopin is like Valium. It's like Ativan. It's a benzodiazepine. And you can have some very serious life-threatening withdrawals coming off of something like that if you were, taking a whole lot or whatever. But neither here nor there, we're not going to probably ever get the story. So obviously, the people that hired this guy are not monitoring their pilots very well. That's a given.
Well, they don't care. I mean, they don't care. It's like, gee, can you imagine what that pilot was thinking when he got locked out of the... I mean, can you imagine the terror that guy was going through?
I told you all about me getting on the plane with that diagnostic machine, right? Well, if they let me on with that, next time I fly, I'm taking a cordless drill, just in case.
You better have a big
parachute. And a parachute.
And some heavy-duty metal bits for it.
All right. Well, I'm going to mute myself and move on to the rest of the news.
All right. Well, thank you very much, JoJo, for calling in, and we miss you around here, so don't be a stranger. Everybody, this is JoJo.
Since our big Ebola outbreak, there just hasn't really been anything big for me to report on.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you still coming around for the medical correspondence. So thank you again, my friend. I'll put you back. I'll put you back on hold so you can continue to hear. Okay.
Hey, just let me mute myself in case I want to jump in on something else.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Let's move on here, Scott. Let's talk about Iran because this is something that we need to talk about. I've been having conversations all day and been getting briefs and things about what's going on up there. I'm thinking we're all getting jerked around by this. I'm thinking that we have incredible stuff. We've talked about the satellite systems we have and the communication systems. And, I mean, the satellites that we have in space from the Teledesic company. Remember we talked about the new internet and stuff? Well, not only can they intercept any signal from any other satellite that's up there, whether it's ours or a foreign satellite, they can even knock these satellites out. So if there's something going on in Iran, we know about it. We have these planes that can see underground. I forget the name of it here. I think it's I don't know. It's like a 130 or something, but it's a special plane. Anyhow, it can hear.
C-130?
It's not a C-130, but it's a 130.
All right.
Not sure of the exact numbers. It might be like a WC. Oh, wait a minute. I have it over here. I got notes everywhere. So you should see my desk. Anyhow, it's a 130. That I do know. So, anyhow, we have all kinds of capabilities, so we know what's going on with Iran. They're telling us about this huge deal that they got and about the nukes, and Iran wants nukes. Well, you know what? Iran doesn't need nukes to upset the entire world. Just wanting to pursue nukes, they might as well already have one. Iran is on the move. Iran wants to rebuild the Persian Empire. They have John Kerry, Obama, the social worker there, Wendy Sherman, Susan Rice, Samantha Powers, all wrapped around their fingers. They're doing everything. Iran, they were going to ship their used centrifuges and nuclear material to Russia. That was part of the agreement. Now all of a sudden they say, well, no, I think we're going to be keeping our stuff. Well, why? They don't want this deal. They don't. If Iran wanted a nuke, just think about it for a second. They're friends with Pakistan and they're friends with North Korea.
They already have one.
Yes, that was my second point. Was they have access through their allies, like I said, North Korea, to have a nuke. So either they're full of it or they already have it. And then they have two underground sites, not just Fordo, but there was another one. Fordo, rather. But there's another one. Now, why do they need these secret bunkers 400 yards beneath the surface of the planet if, it was for peaceful purposes? So I think we're getting jerked here. And then they're going to tell us that, this deal might not be in writing. Well, let me ask you something. If Iran breaks say, Section 5, Code 116 of this vapor phantom deal, how are you going to know? And how are you going to say, well, you broke that rule if it's not in writing? The first thing you learn is get it in writing, right?
Even if it's in writing, there's no international police force that ever keeps anybody in line when they break these rules. And, I mean, the U.S. is no better. They go over there and kill a head of state, Muammar Gaddafi. Anything happen for that? I mean, Hillary should be in court for that one, And Obama, I mean, they killed a head of state. It's against international law.
It was against international law.
You can make all the laws you want in the world, but if you don't enforce them, they're not worth the paper they're written on, right?
Yeah, well, at least the laws are in writing. This time they're not even going to put them in writing. It's anybody's guess what the terms of this agreement are. So what are they just going to shake hands? And then
it just makes people feel better. Oh, it's a treaty. It's in writing. Wow. Oh.
Well, a treaty has to be ratified by Congress.
And the person who signs the treaty, would lie to his own mother. I mean, you can't trust these people as far as you can throw any of them.
Yeah, well, that's one good thing about Harry Reid. He's not very fond of treaties. And Obama knows there is absolutely no way that the Senate is going to ratify any kind of treaty. But there's another thing. No politician has the authority to surrender sovereignty to a foreign body. He can't just go making deals with Iran and with the United Nations. You can't surrender our sovereignty. You cannot violate the Constitution like that. That's probably why he's not putting in writing. As soon as the ink is dry, he's going to be in jail.
There is no Constitution anymore. They violate it every day. There's no consequences. They've all taken an oath that they've all went against, no consequences, and when you can get away with it, you're going to get away with it. I mean, period.
All right, then.
When's the last time anybody has gotten in trouble for doing that? When is the last time heads rolled anywhere? I think the last time any heads rolled was during the savings and loan fiasco, or maybe Enron. But after that, it's been a license to steal, do whatever you want, stomp on the Constitution, lie to Congress. I mean, the way they make you believe Bill Clinton couldn't get away with lying to Congress over a BJ from his intern. But,
right.
Lois Lerner can get up there and lie about targeting Tea Partiers. Eric Holder can get up there and lie through his fangs about Fast and Furious and everything else that he did. And,
that
Trey
got
Gowdy
with
barks.
The Benghazi thing.
Right. Trey Gowdy barks like a little chihuahua. But he never, he never bites.
They come out and they yell and scream and they get everybody in an uproar and then nothing ever comes of it.
Right.
Now this back to this Iran deal though. Now they're saying, oh well, there's only a couple sticking points and we're really close, and then they ended their meeting. No sooner did they get out of their meeting, but Iran vowed to crush America. Iran Armed Forces ready to give crushing response to enemies. This is from Fars News. The General Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces underscored that Iran's military troops are fully prepared to defend the country against enemy threats and give a firm response to any potential foreign aggressor. The armed forces will give a firm and remorsing response to any practical threat by the enemies, especially the U.S. and the Zionist regime, in proportion to the level and type of the hostile attempts. Okay, so here's the military chief telling us that they're going to crush us. And then Reuters says Iran seeks a nuclear deal, but not normal ties with the great Satan. Here we are, death to America again. Iran's not expected to normalize relations with the United States, even if Tehran reaches an agreement with world powers on its nuclear program. The United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China are trying to reach a deal with Iran aimed at stopping Tehran being able to develop a nuclear bomb in exchange for an easing of sanctions that are crippling its economy. Loyalists of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei drawn from among Islamists and Revolutionary Guards who fear continued economic hardship might cause the collapse of the establishment, have agreed to back President Hassan Rouhani's pragmatic readiness to negotiate a nuclear deal. But it will not go beyond that, and he, meaning Khomeini, will not agree with normalizing ties with America. You cannot erase decades of hostility with a deal. So, death to America.
And all they do is bark as well. You know, they're like Trey Gowdy. All they do is bark. You know, and I don't like Iran any more than you do. But you know what? If a bully threatens to come over and beat you up, you don't go over to his house and kill him because he threatened to beat you up. You actually got to wait until he comes over and tries something. You know what I mean? And it's all they got. All they got is threats. It's like Kim Jong-un. All he can do is bark when he wants something. And the United States throws him a few crumbs and he shuts up for 6 months. And then guess what? He's back again saying the same thing over and over and over. Like, you know, pay attention to me. I mean, if Iran really wants to make a threat, they'll quit threatening to, you know, wipe Israel off the map, which I'm not sure they actually said because I can't speak.
Oh, yeah, they say it. They said it.
Farsi. But all they have to do is attack the Strait of Hormuz, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So long oil supply. If they really want to do some damage to the West, just shut down the Strait of Hormuz. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Only 80% of the oil comes out of there, you know?
Yeah, well, the whole world would be in an uproar if that happened. But then you have even Obama's former intel chief. His name is Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. He destroyed Obama in 2 words. He used the words willful ignorance. That means he's willingly turning a blind eye to this. So, you know, what the hell is this? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're getting jerked.
You know, look what they're doing in Yemen. I mean, he's trying to give Iran some muscle. He's funding Yemen. You know, he's funding both sides of the conflict. As much chaos as you can create in the Middle East, that's the plan.
Yeah, well, we're fighting alongside Iran against ISIS in Iraq, but we're fighting against Iran in Yemen, and we're kind of halfway in Syria.
Yeah,
so we're either enemies or we're not enemies. We're getting jerked around here. Obama's giving them everything they ask for. Kerry's bending over backwards. You know, he said he didn't want to ship the used fuel out of the country. So now we're going to say, well, you know, maybe you really don't have to. Maybe we can find another way. No. If he's got this stuff hanging around, he can just continue to use it. You know
what they've done?
They'll give him enough to keep his power going, but they're not going to give him enough to make weapons. Plus, you know, you may be right. They probably already have a bomb. All they had to do was get with North Korea, who they're chums with.
They've erased the number 1 rule of war, okay, which is identify the enemy. Our military don't even know who the enemy is anymore. Because today they're fighting against them. Tomorrow they're fighting next to them.
Right.
You know, next week they're going to be fighting with one of their allies. I mean, you know,
we don't have any
who the enemy is. And
we don't have
a president and administration that won't even call, you know, a spade, no pun intended.
Right. Well, you know, you're right. And you know why that is because how are you going to be accused of giving aid and comfort to the enemy when you don't have any enemies? He's taking them all off the list. The Taliban, the ISIS, maybe not ISIS, but al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Iran. You know, they don't call us enemies because we're in negotiations. So him giving them all this aid and comfort and definitely making them comfortable, you know, how are you going to charge them with treason if they're not your enemies, per se?
No,
you know, just like giving back those 5 Taliban generals for a deserter.
Okay.
You know, they could have given them one underling or something out of one of the other prisons in a swap for this dude.
This is what I mean about the Constitution not meaning anything. It's meaningless because when you clearly aid and abet the enemy over and over and over and over and over and over and over, stomp on the Constitution, declare law just by uttering the words without going through Congress, without, having anybody writing any legislation. I mean, it's just blatant, in-your-face dictatorship, and nobody does anything about it. But, they'd rather spend time talking about Grover Norquist and what a terrible job he's doing at the NRA. Really?
Well,
with all the things we have to worry about, you're worrying about someone, in an organization. That's their business. You know what? If the members of that organization don't like the board members, stop sending in your dues. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, that guy Grover Norquist, he's on all these boards with, and one of them is associated with Iran, and he's telling everybody that he's a conservative. He's not a conservative. He doesn't care. He's another internationalist.
And everybody,
he's none of the above.
You know what? Anybody in 10 minutes can do a background check and figure that out. They know what he's about. That's why they let him in to begin with. You know what? I'd stop sending my money to the NRA. I'd start sending it to Gun Owners of America. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, we have infiltrators all over the place. Even Pelosi put Andre Carson on the Intel Committee, the Congressional Intelligence Committee. And the man's, God,
that's what I mean. It's just a joke because everybody knows who these people are. I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, like I was mentioning the other day, when I was 18 and I went to apply for mowing a lawn, they did mowing a lawn. They did a background check and a drug test on me. I don't know. I guess they thought I might be a criminal drug addict who could run over a family of bunnies. But here you got people that are getting into organizations like the NRA and this and that and this and that. And, I mean, you don't do a simple background check on them? It's because they know who these people are. And somebody's paid off somebody else to let them in.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a little sick of being jerked around.
We've got real problems here. And worrying about, what some idiot is doing in a private organization, for one small segment of a gun voting lobby, isn't going to do much good. They're going to do what they want to do. I'll tell you what, Ted Nugent's going to expose him on that. He's the best thing that ever, happened to the NRA. He's the one that's watching these people. But this isn't news. This is just distracting from the real problems, like this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Taking over the whole world's commodities and everything else.
That's on our docket.
That kind of stuff is what's really going to change our lives forever. And, there isn't even going to be an illusion of voting somebody out. You're going to have absolutely no say. And, the story you're probably going to do is the one where corporations will be able to sue the state of Nebraska because, you didn't let us sell our Monsanto seed.
Yeah.
And they'll just sue states, bankrupt them.
Yeah, well, that's illegal because that is surrendering U.S. sovereignty. We have our own legal system here, but we're going to get to that one. Let's finish up on this foreign policy stuff so we can move on because we've got a ton of stuff. All right, in Yemen, as you know, the Saudis and actually a bunch of the Arabs, they have a joint intervention force now. And it says Saudi Arabia, Egypt, let's see here, there's some other ones, there's a bunch of them. They're all getting together. It's called an Arab League Joint Defense Council, and they intend to be set up within 4 months. The Egyptian President, al-Sisi, has described the force as an absolute necessity. Egyptian military and security officials have said the proposed force would be made up of up to 40,000 elite troops and will be headquartered in either Cairo or Riyadh, the Saudi capital. And the force would be backed by jet fighters, warships, and armor. So they're sick of waiting for us to help them out. But you know what? I'm sick of helping them out too. I'm not opposed to them standing up for themselves either. If they can do it, what are we doing there? Also, in Yemen, the Saudis have secured that port up in Sana'a. So I'm not opposed to that, too. They imposed a blockade on Yemen's ports as coalition airstrikes repelled in advance on the southern port city of Aden by Shiite rebels and forces loyal to the former president. in what appeared to be the most intense day of fighting. I saw some photographs. They lit up an armory over there. As night fell, intense explosions could be heard throughout the rebel-held capital, Sana'a, where warplanes had carried out strikes earlier in the morning. So military officials from both sides of the conflict said that the airstrikes were targeting areas east and south of the third largest city of Taiz, as well as its airport. So they're trying to minimize these fighters, the ISIS fighters, from having access to the ports and getting stuff in and out. And we have minesweepers over there, too. So they got that on lockdown right now. And Saudi, we're not involved in it other than, if a Saudi pilot or something gets shot down, we're tasked with going in after them. But you know what? I
think they've all got the bomb. Iran, Saudi Arabia, definitely. I mean, I've been telling people for 30 years that Israel had it, and they're all going, no, they don't. They need the United States to protect them. Well, it's finally come out that they actually have a huge program.
Yeah, Israel had never even mentioned it.
They've even written about the Samson option, in books and everything else.
Obama had no business declassifying Israel's secrets. That was a gift to Iran, too. How dare he?
Well,
this is supposedly our ally, and Iran is supposedly our enemy. So you give away your friend's secrets in order to make some shabby deal, not even in writing, while they're yelling death to America? When was the last time Israel said death to America? Never. But those are the ones that were slapping around like a rag doll? I don't know about this, Obama. But he's got everything screwed up, and he's got social workers doing the negotiating, so now we have to have empathy. And he's got his mouthpieces like Marie Hopp saying, well, I don't know about this, and I don't know about that, and there is no deal yet, but we're not giving up on it. And then they give us this artificial deadline of tomorrow. So now it's almost tomorrow over there, and they're saying, well, if the deal falls through, we still got another deadline, June 30th. And if it falls through then, we'll just keep negotiating. We'll keep talking. In the meantime, Iran's jerking you. If they don't have a bomb, they will by the time they're done jerking you. And, this is also to get the UN involved, to supersede our Congress. And I think there's a little piece in there for the Palestinian Authority, too. Give them statehood.
Well,
of course, they're being nice and quiet over there and just dealing with it.
It all stems from the United Nations to begin with, and they do this just to make it look like it starts somewhere else, and then they can come in and agree with it. I mean, even the ammo ban. I mean, the ammunition that the ATF ban is the exact same one that the United Nations came out and said should be banned. Ooh, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
No, the ATF saw what the United Nations wanted banned, come and tried to ban it, and then they could say, wow, see that? They agreed with the United Nations. Well, yeah, it came from them in the first place. And right now, the whole narrative is switching to where Israel's going to be the bad guy, and they're going to be pretty much edged out because they're not needed anymore. There's enough chaos over there without them. And that's why George Bush's advisor, or Jeb Bush's advisor, is anti-Israel. And everybody thinks that's wow, what a big revelation. No, it isn't. He's just gonna. That's why there's pictures of him sitting there talking to Valerie Jarrett in a restaurant.
This is the same world body that established Israel to begin with.
There's going to be no
so
change.
Now that I don't know, I'm just tired of it, and they got everybody fighting with each other, and nobody's the enemy, and we can't even tell who the enemy is here. They've got us so confused.
And you can't be at war with someone when you can't even identify. It's the first rule of war: identify the enemy. There is no enemy. It's just a free for all.
And then the equipment that's ending up in the enemy's hands. Look at all the stuff that was left behind in Iraq and Yemen, and the mistakenly airdropped in to other places. The things they're giving Iran, just as concessions. And then I saw a story that says that there's military equipment for sale on eBay. the stuff that we left behind. 32,000 thermal optic imaging and night vision devices were reported missing. One of the items, the OASYS-BAE system, which is a universal thermomonocular, is the same name of a device that appeared for sale on eBay in December. In addition, several thermal imaging devices are currently available on eBay, selling for about $10,000 each. So,
see, and that goes against the old protocol. I mean, it used to be you either had to ship our equipment back to the United States or to another military base, or you could destroy it. But you couldn't leave it intact for the so-called bad guy to get a hold of it. Now, well, you know what? They want to supply a certain group with a bunch of stuff, and leaving it behind is much cleaner and easier than, say, running it through Syria or, Libya and having another ambassador get smoked.
Unbelievable. I don't even know what to say anymore. I just know that we're getting jerked around. There's a deal, there's no deal. Iran's the enemy, they're not the enemy. ISIS is the enemy, they're not the enemy. Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Al-Shabaab, Hezbollah, Hamas. You could just name them off, but they were all...
Iran has got to know they're on the hit list. I mean, this hit list was written 8, 9, 10 years ago. I mean, even when that worm, General Wesley Clark, come out, and he said, I saw a thing from top military guys, friends of his, that they were going to attack 8 countries in 5 years. Well, it's been longer. It's taken them longer than 5 years, but every one on that list has been taken down. Libya, Egypt, and the next 2 are Syria and Iran. And think about it. What was it, a year and a half ago? They were doing everything they could to talk us into attacking Syria. I mean, you even had Lindsey Graham go on Fox News and say, "Oh, South Carolina is going to get attacked by nuclear weapon if we don't go into Syria right now and take out Assad."
Well, that was one of the concessions. We're just going to turn it over to Iran. And the same with Iraq. What is Suleiman doing in Iraq? Suleiman is the baddest Iranian dude. He was the head of the IR, the Iranian Republic Guard there, IRC or something they call them. Well,
Royal Guard?
Yeah, the special, like the special forces type.
Yeah,
he's the boss over there. He's like the number one bad guy, the tough guy. He's over there in Tikrit, taking over control and command. Now, that's what's he doing there? That's bad news for everybody. That's bad news for Jordan and Egypt and Yemen and the Saudis. And when that guy shows up, that's like having Brzezinski show up. That's bad news.
What I don't understand is the military brass putting up with this. So they know something we don't, which is who they're actually going to be fighting. Because what do you do when you're attacking an army? The first thing you want to do is take out the commanders. Because if there's no command, there's no commanders, or it's all it is it's anarchy. And with no leadership, they're decimated very quickly. And this guy trades 5 of the most heinous bastards on the planet for this traitor Bergdahl,
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
Think about
they
this.
They needed commanders really bad, and boy, he just delivered them to them. I mean,
well,
you don't hear anything from the military brass?
We need commanders. Our military brass, he's purged, 700 of them? Of
brass.
Probably
ones that didn't want to go along with this.
Right.
So because they know what this is.
Now, he cleans out all our leaders, and he brings up people from the ranks. They don't know anything. All they know is follow orders. They don't know how to set up plans. They don't know how to do any of that.
Right.
Anybody who knew that is already gone. So it doesn't take just getting rid of, just downsizing the military. He did worse than that. He didn't downsize the ranks. He downsized the brass. So nobody knows anything.
It's what he does
with the military in chaos.
everyone. It's what he's done with every important position. You put in the most incompetent piece of crap you can find in an important position, and they're not going to, they're going to do the most bad, poor job that possibly can be done. And then when something goes wrong, they can always just, she didn't know what she was doing. It's Susan Rice. What do you want?
Yeah, because you're fighting the guy who didn't know what he was doing.
You know what? Even when they put Hegel in there to dissect the military, Hegel himself come out and said, I'm not qualified for this. I don't want this job. I'm not qualified. And they stuck him in there anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what's going on with our military. Anybody who would have known what to do is now gone. The generals, the admirals, the majors, the captains, the colonels. They all got pink slipped.
And a lot of
you got a bunch of enlisted people running the show, and although they're wonderful people, they don't know how to run the military. I'm very upset.
No.
And then Obama, you think he cares? He was in Boston last week with his daughter and his wife going to the colleges. Today he was in Boston for the dedication of the Edward M. Kennedy Institute in Boston. And then right after that at 1:20 p.m. he participated in a DNC fundraiser at Area 4 in Boston. Area 4 is a pizza restaurant. It was rated one of Boston's 50 best, and it's like $100 pizza. So there he was, and then
jackwagon. You know what he cares about? He cares about playing golf as long as there's no reporters to report on how crappy he does at that.
He played golf all weekend
and stumbling down the steps of Air Force One, hoping he doesn't fall.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know.
See
he
that?
stumbled too. I saw that. He was wrecked and he almost slid down the stairs.
That's what happens, after a weekend binge of doing God knows what. He's stumbling around like an old hooker at 4 a.m.
Now I just got a visual of that. But he's just he doesn't care. And the person he golfed with all weekend, by the way, you know how all the progressives all hate Dick Cheney and they hate Halliburton? Well, it was the CEO of Halliburton that he was golfing with. So there goes that out the window too.
That. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see that? I know. They're just one big happy crime family. Everybody keeps playing it back and forth. Oh, the Republicans. Oh, the liberals hated that Ted Cruz might get nominated. No, they don't. You know what? The people they're at the bottom that still think this voting thing is legit. Yeah, they may think that some of this left-wing crap may be rolled back, but it's never going to happen. It isn't. The GOP, Newt Gingrich did a speech the other night, and he came out and admitted that the GOP has no desire whatsoever to repeal Obamacare.
Yeah,
they don't. It was written by the insurance companies. The insurance companies throw so much campaign money their way and money under the table and all kinds of things, resorts and cat houses all over the world and this and that. They don't, they're just, it's us and them. Nobody is representing us. No one.
That's true. And that's actually our fault. We're going to get to that. Before we go to break, though, I want to do one more thing about this. I told you that Obama was at that Kennedy Center. Well, that Kennedy Institute was supposed to have been funded from all private donations. Well, guess what? Over half of the funding for the Ted Kennedy Shrine came from taxpayer dollars. And half of that came from the defense budget. Why are they using the defense budget? See, they tell us about this defense budget and how we got to cut it because we spent too much money on the military. Very little of that money goes to the actual military. It goes to paying off cartels, and it goes to foreign donations, and it goes to politicians, and it goes to the Kennedy Center. This says it was supposed to be all private money, but alas, even in death, Teddy Kennedy has found a way to take from the American taxpayer. That the money is going to his own self-aggrandizement would have pleased him. That money came from defense. Would have pleased them even more. The New York Times writes, here's an unstated lesson. It pays to have friends running the Appropriations Committee. More than $18 million of the $38 million in public funds for the center was funneled through the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, a powerful panel once run by other Senate powerhouses who have died in recent years. Senators Daniel Inouye from Hawaii and Ted Stevens from Alaska. Boy, is that ever true. But one would think people would be lining up to throw cash at the project, given how great Kennedy was. Couldn't the Kennedy clan pony up the dough? Or maybe just just house the memorial in a basement of the Hyannisport estate? But why have the family or friends of the Kennedys pay for Teddy's monument when one can get the taxpayers to do it? Newsmax writes, Obama, Vice President Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren will all gather to praise the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate. Kerry will skip due to being in Switzerland. Much will be said about Kennedy's 46-year record in the U.S. Senate. Nothing about various scandals that range from Chappaquiddick or attempts to have the Soviets intervene in the 1984 presidential election against Ronald Reagan. Boston Herald columnist Howie Carr, who I absolutely adore, by the way, points out that the Institute was supposed to be paid for exclusively with private donations. But it should come as no surprise that the gorgeous 40,000-square-foot building that will house Kennedy's papers and memorabilia, as well as a recreation of his personal office and the Senate chamber, was financed with a generous $38 million congressional earmark. The state of Massachusetts chipped in with another $5 million for education infrastructure. So, where's those private donations? We are such saps. And then they took it out of the defense budget. What the hell does a Kennedy Institute shrine in Boston have to do with the defense of this nation? Zero. Nothing. They can't pay our veterans. They can't supply our soldiers. They don't even give them a hot breakfast anymore. But they got $38 million to throw at a 40,000-square-foot building that any one of the Kennedys could have pulled out of their pocket. They walk around with that kind of money.
They got a license to steal. They use it every day.
Yeah, I was no fan of Ted Kennedy, but I assure you.
I'm just glad there's no currency exchanges in hell, since Ted can't benefit from it, personally.
Yeah, well, it's probably a tour guide there. All right, let's take our break. And when we come back, we have so much more to get to. Please stick around. We'll be right back. And hello again, everybody. We're back. Thank you for sticking around. We appreciate it. All right, everybody all refreshed? Ready for round two? All right. Let's get back into some news. Got anything you want to bring up?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, today the Supreme Court declined to hear the Obamacare death panel case. From the Hill, it says the Supreme Court on Monday declined to hear a challenge to Obamacare that argued a cost-cutting board set up by the law, saying that it was unconstitutional. The case dealt with the law's Independent Payment Advisory Board, the IPAB, which critics of Obamacare have labeled death panels. We all know that. The board is charged with recommending ways to cut Medicare spending if it rises above a certain threshold. Like if you're over 70 years old and you're sick, well, you just get pain control. Anyhow, as is customary, the court didn't give a reason for its decision. The Goldwater Institute, which brought the case, Coons versus Liu, argued the board violates the constitutional principle that Congress cannot delegate its power to another body. A federal district court ruled that the board does not violate the Constitution, and an appeals court later dismissed the case as being unripe, meaning that there's no practical harm at stake because the board does not yet exist. So you can't stop it until it starts, is what the court is saying. Then, if it starts, then you can come back and you can prove harm. So, although they tried to, the Goldstone Institute tried to get rid of the IPAB board, they were unsuccessful. Now, we have our EPA chief. Now, you know about Hillary deleting all her emails, and you know about Lois Lerner losing her emails. Well, emails seem to be endangered species, along with text messages or anything that would give you any type of an indication or oversight or anything over these people. They're all acting like they're subcontracting to us, that they're not actually part of our government structure. So they're acting like all these communications are their own personal business. Well, a subpoena is probably in order after the EPA chief, Gina McCarthy, deleted nearly 6,000 text messages. Washington Times says experts on federal record-keeping laws on Thursday agreed with a House committee subpoena of an EPA administrator, Gina McCarthy. They want her cell phone records to help determine whether she was involved in a cover-up. Representative Lamar Smith, chairman of the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, issued the subpoena after Ms. McCarthy claimed that of nearly 6,000 text messages, just one was agency business and that she deleted the rest. She did it just days after the committee had alerted the EPA that it may be breaking the record-keeping rules for text messages. So, you know, Paul Wester, Jr., he's the chief records officer over at the National Archives, he said he would want to see McCarthy's phone records, too, to determine if she was telling the truth. I would have to see the content and what the whole volume of text messages was before I could make that determination, Mr. Wester said at a committee hearing. So Mr. Smith pressed the EPA Assistant Inspector General Kevin Christensen on whether Ms. McCarthy's claim was plausible. Just using the common sense standard, without saying definitively one way or the other, is it credible that 6,000 text messages would be sent that would not be related to work when the messages were all sent on official devices, Mr. Smith asked? Christensen responded, I would question it, and I would want to see the context before I reached a conclusion. So they're not getting off it. They're just sticking with the story. You got 6,000 text messages on your government-issued phone, and none of it was government business except for one? Why are you doing personal business on the government phone, then?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you know, you got Lois Lerner. She comes out, she lies about, all her emails and everything being destroyed and disappearing, which, of course, they never disappear because they're stored on servers, they have private ones, but, you and I, Yahoo's got their own server. Those things are saved. They don't go anywhere. And then, they put an actual blind person to find her missing emails, which
Literally.
is another joke just to laugh at us. And then we found them. We found all of Lois's emails. Oh, great. And Trey Gowdy starts barking like the little doggy that he is for a while. And guess what? We still haven't seen any of them, but they found them. Wasn't that the big thing for 6 months everybody was talking about? Those missing emails? If we could just find them. And then now they found them, and guess what? Nobody cares. Nobody's looking at them. Nobody's dragging her in front of a committee again. Nothing. Because they know the attention span of the average voter is about a week. And all you got to do is drag it along a couple of months. And guess what? There's so many other scandals that have happened since then that people are focusing on them.
Yep.
It's like if you start a fire in a room of a house and the fire truck is the American public. Well, here comes the fire truck to put out that fire. Well, before the fire truck gets there, you start 100 more fires in different places in that house, and that fire truck's going to forget all about that very first one. They're going to be going toward the biggest one they see or the closest one they see, and they know that.
That's a good analogy. That's a good analogy.
What a drag,
Yeah, another thing we're getting jerked around on is this Religious Freedom Restoration Act that Mike Pence just signed in Indiana. Man, that's got everybody in an uproar, and it's another circle jerk. They're going to have us all fighting with each other. Do you know that 18 or 19 states have that exact Religious Freedom Restoration Act?
But they have to get the focus off the fact that it's a Religious Freedom Act, and they have to make it look like it's an attack on gay people.
They even use that in the headline, Anti-Gay Act. No, it isn't an anti-gay act. It's a pro-religious freedom. And I got a question for everybody. How come only 19 states have it? Especially, why do we even need it? Because we have our First Amendment that guarantees religious freedom. Is this a way to manipulate that, to change the meaning, to maybe, I don't know, change the First Amendment, period. Because
I don't know, because every religion condemns it. I mean, basically every religion condemns it. I mean, I don't care if it's Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam. You know, somewhere in their book they say this is a no-no. You know, but you should have a right to refuse service because of your religious beliefs. You know, now they have sent heterosexual couples into gay bakeries and asked them to bake them a cake for their heterosexual, you know, traditional marriage, and they've been denied. But
right.
That's what it's all about. It's about selective discrimination, and if you're in the minority, so-called, well, then you can just roll all over somebody else's religious beliefs. But if you're not, well, you can forget it.
Yeah, well, you know how else I know it's a circle jerk and we're getting stiffed? Is because, like you just said, they'll walk into a gay bakery or they'll walk into a Christian bakery. How come nobody walks in a Muslim bakery? None of these cases that have made headlines is anything to do, you know.
Atheists
you walk into a Muslim bakery
Islam.
And you're gay.
That? Atheists never attack anybody but Christians. I wonder why.
It's always the Christians.
Yeah.
That's
Jews. Because that's the narrative, and that's the United Nations plan as well. You got to wipe out Christianity first. They're going to use Islam to do it. They're going to use Islam and atheists to wipe out all other religions, and when there's no other religion but Islam, they're going to wipe that one out too. Then that's when they replace it with Luciferianism, the one that the United Nations actually has prayers to before their meetings. And that's not a secret. You can Google that. It'll come up.
Mhm.
You know?
And I'll tell you what, I'm getting a little tired of it. I'm getting tired of being bullied for my skin or my religion or my gender. You know, all of a sudden we have like tribal regions or something. I'm going to get to that too in 1 second. But before I do, in regards to this Religious Freedom Restoration Act, you have an economist at the Labor Relations Board and from the Department of Labor. She said that Republicans will vote for Nazis. She deleted it. But, you know, the legislators that are writing the laws, you know, we shouldn't even need these laws. And, you know, it's probably even subverting the Bill of Rights if we get down to it. They can change the meaning on anything. And, of course, there's going to be challenges. But this chick says people in the red, her name is Elizabeth Ashak, A-S-H-A-C-K. She wrote, people in red states vote for Nazis to govern and then call themselves Christian. It will not end well for them. Her tweet was first reported by our friend over there, Super Mexican, and then at the Right Scoop. But Ashak has since deleted the tweet and also edited her Twitter profile to remove mention of her position with the Labor Department. They didn't fire her. They just, you know, took it off of her Twitter. Now everything's fine. But, you know, and then the racism. All right? I know race is controversial and everybody's probably going to get freaked out. Oh, my God, here we go. We're talking about race again. Well, they had more black brunch in Atlanta over the weekend. And there was a Boston cop shot, so they had a lot of protesters there. The guy was shot by a convicted felon, just got out of prison for attempted murder on another cop. He was in possession of a gun. He was seen making a drug deal. The car was pulled over. This guy that's dead, his name is Antonio West. He jumped out of the car and shot the cop. Two other cops are who shot him. The cop that was shot didn't shoot him. Two other cops shot him as he was turning his gun and firing at them and running. So that's what happened.
Yes.
It wasn't some profiling. It wasn't anything. They saw a deal go down. They found the drugs, they found the guns, they found everything. But, of course, they have this professional protester from Acorn and Black Lives Matter Boston. Her name is Dee Dee. Sent her down there to get the crowd all riled up. She was screaming and getting in the cops' faces and shoving people and saying, don't touch me. You're shoving people, but they can't touch you. They can't protect themselves from being swung on by you.
Yep.
So now we got this Brooklyn Democrat. She's a city councilwoman. She's picking on the Asians.
Yeah,
you see
I saw
that?
that.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice to be able just to be a blatant, in-your-face racist? But since you're black and a Democrat, you get a free pass. This is what I mean about selective outrage and selective groups. If you're anything normal, okay, if you're anything that traditional to this country, straight, white, anything Christian, anything like that, which has been the norm and the majority of this country for 250 years or whatever, you are now fair game, target on your back. And if you're anything else, then you get a pass. Boy, if you're a black transgender Democrat who just happens to be an illegal alien, you're royalty, baby.
Yeah, well, I hate that with that Religious Restoration Act and with this chick, they're using the word protected group. What do you mean protected group? We don't have a caste system here. But check out this chick.
No.
Her name is Laurie Cumbo, C-U-M-B-O. Boy, there's all kinds of variations of that. She's identified a big problem when it comes to public housing in New York City. Too many damn Asians. Those are not my words. Those are hers. At a recent council hearing on public housing, Cumbo inquired as to why blocks of Asians were living in two city housing units. How is it that one specific ethnic group has had the opportunity to move into a development in large numbers, asked Cumbo. Cumbo later issued an apology for her overt racism, but then floated an idea that could be viewed as being even more racially insensitive than her previous statement. Apparently, Cumbo, who is black, believes that it would be beneficial to put New Yorkers into certain housing blocks based on their race and ethnicity. There could be some benefit to housing people by culture. I think it needs to be discussed, Cumbo told the New York Post. Well, the idea brings to mind areas of Europe where multiculturalism has become the norm, particularly among Muslims. In some European cities, such as Paris, racial and ethnic groups have segregated themselves into their own communities. The impact of this multiculturalism was recently put under a microscope after the Charlie Hebdo killings. So now, what are they doing now? We're going to just revert into like tribal regions?
Well, they've been doing that forever. I mean, that's why you got Little Italy in New York, and you got Little China and Chinatown, and you just do that. And it has nothing to do with not liking another group of people. It's just you feel better around your own kind. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have this discussion with a black friend of mine, and I said, okay, you tell me this. I said, your car breaks down in a neighborhood, and on one side of the street's a bunch of white people, and on the other side of the street's a bunch of black people. Who are you going to go ask to use their phone, and why? Of course, he says, I'm going to go to the side with the black people. Well, why? You don't like white folks?
Mm-hmm.
It's just you go where you feel comfortable.
Well, we're never going to get along if they keep separating themselves and separating us.
Yeah, we're never going to get along anyway.
Regions.
We're not going to get along anyway, especially when you have Al Sharpton's circus coming to town saying that all your problems are because of a certain group of other people. I mean, white privilege is just a racist term that black people use to blame white folks for all their troubles. And I mean, I know just as many poor white people as I ever did any black people. It's not about what color you are. It's about, well, you're related to somebody in politics. What's your last name? Is it Kennedy? Well, what?
Well, and then people,
we're all suffering.
People say, well, 200 years ago there was slavery. Well, do you see any 200-year-old slaves or slave owners?
Yeah.
So it didn't involve you whatsoever,
what?
and it didn't involve me whatsoever. So why are you bringing it up?
My ancestors aren't responsible for your problems. All right, and that's what I want to tell them. My ancestors came from Sicily. All right, they didn't bring slaves over here, and neither did and even the people that did. It's the way it was. It's the way it was in every country. Every country was basically built by slave labor. because there's more poor people than there are rich idiots forcing them to do it.
Well,
Egypt and everywhere. I mean, it's the same. Scotland, you name it. It's not just America.
One of my ancestors, one of my grandfathers, was an Irish longshoreman. He had 10 kids. He didn't have any slaves. He could barely get a job anywhere. There were signs in windows saying Irish need not apply.
And
my other grandfather worked on the railroad.
Against like the Irish were and the Italians that came over here. I mean, they did the most horrible back-breaking labor for no pay. And you know what? I've never heard an Irishman or Italian complain about racism. Have you? I haven't. No,
or the Polacks or the Europeans or the, and anybody. It's just,
right.
You want to go back 200. Why do people want to go back 200 years? There's no future living in the past. And if the past calls, hang up on it. It's got nothing new to say.
Well,
but,
because it works.
my other grandfather was Italian, and he worked on the railroad for the same reason. Italian need not apply. But they did it. They worked. They, made their way. They didn't have any slaves, that's for sure. So, not all white people have ancestors that were slave owners. As a matter of fact, Obama's ancestors are still slave owners and slave traders. And he's the biggest hypocrite around. The Kennedys, how many slaves do you think the Kennedys had or still have?
Yeah.
And then I heard a story about an Indian guy out in California who had kidnapped his employee, who was an illegal immigrant from India. He stole his, papers and stuff. Finally, one of the other employees at the restaurant got in touch with one of this guy's relatives to let him know that he was still alive, at least, because he wasn't even allowed to contact his family. They contacted the police and went to this restaurant and freed the poor guy. He was the cook. He had been working for 2 years for 80 hours a week, never got a paycheck, was never let out of the owner's sight. Those weren't white people, neither one of them. So when you cluster everybody into a single group, you're making a big mistake. There are awesome, awesome black people. There are awesome, awesome white people and Asians, and poor Asians. And what do they do? And now this chick's starting on them.
You know what? I know, and people forget that, during World War II, Japanese people were rounded up and stuck in FEMA-type camps just for being Japanese.
Yeah.
And, you tell people
thing
today about this Fort Lauderdale drill, which I don't know how anybody can say I kind of think that's a positive thing. You know what? They'll do that to people in this country in a heartbeat, and it won't be Japanese or some foreigners anymore. It's going to be people in John Deere hats from, Iowa.
Yeah, well, on those drills, all right, it was an urban drill in Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale has a deep water port where they have the big, cruise ships and stuff too. I'm thinking, okay, you could be right. It could be practicing for martial law, and and I read the stories and see the stories, and you could, like I said, you could be right. However, there is another side too that there is a possibility. These military are training. What if somebody held everybody on one of those ships hostage, or what if one of them blew up? A terrorist attack.
It's not what they're doing. And they even have military, their reports even say what it is. I mean, Alex Jones exposed this big time, and retired Colonel Roy Potter come out, and he said exactly what it is. He says, this is an act of war against the American people. They are holding urban drills in American-type cities where they're taking American civilians, using the NDAA and loading them onto a bus and into vans. I mean, this is a retired colonel. He's not lying about this. And he's not a conspiracy theory. He doesn't make things up. He just doesn't put things out there. I mean, and it's in their own manuals what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I have, I think that, like student nurses and student doctors and things like that, you got to let them in. You got to let them practice. You got to, they got to learn the ropes and learn how to do things. The military, they're giving the money to the Kennedys, so they don't have the money to build mock cities.
Oh, they have the money. You're talking about the the above board military budget. You're not talking about the black budget. There's so much money in that. It's not even funny. They're going to all these covert operations.
I'm going to have to do more research on this because
I'll hook you up with some links.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some more research on it because, maybe not everything is as nefarious as we seem, and maybe it is as nefarious as we think. I got to figure it out here. But they didn't hold anybody hostage. They didn't close down or take anybody.
Is benevolent.
No.
Needs to be on some of those SSRI antidepressants because they're nuts. Okay?
Yeah, but I know the administration is. I know the politicians and the administration is completely corrupt.
Yeah,
but I still hold out a little hope that the military is patriots.
No, they're not. They purged all of those guys, remember? You just told us about it.
Yeah, but the young kids, too. They got parents. Their parents,
why do you think the suicide rate is so high in the military among young kids that are in there?
I know why.
You know why?
Because they go in there.
They go in there thinking USA, doing this for patriotism and country and all that, and they go in and find out that it's all a lie, and they can't deal with it.
Yeah, and they can't get out.
Well, they can't get out, and
we have a lot of work to do. Scott, we have a lot of work to do. We got to pull this country back together. I don't know how we're going to do it, though, because everything, it's chaos, and that's intentional. They are coming at us from every direction. We knew it was going to be bad after that last election. I just never imagined how bad it was going to be. And I never imagined how much of it is not real, how much of it is bogus.
Yeah.
Like this Iran deal, that's bogus. Like this Restoration Act, the religious freedom. We don't need that. We have a First Amendment. And then if we did need it, how come only 19 states need it? Not all 50. Something's not right here. Something's not right here. And for it to be this big of a deal, they're manipulating the language. And down the road, somewhere in that language, it affects that First Amendment. These people like Obama, they say that he's a constitutional scholar. That man spent his entire education not learning how to uphold the Constitution, but how to go around it.
You know what?
They see it as a challenge accepted. It's not a challenge. It's a founding document.
Who knows what he even did in college? You know what? I don't think he could have got a D in the law school. He's just not smart enough. But they told him, we're gonna fund you. We're gonna put you in all these big colleges. We're gonna make you the president of this and that and this and that. And then we're gonna have all your records sealed anyway, so nobody's ever gonna know, that you're an idiot. Don't worry about it.
I got news for everybody. If they think that they are going to nullify our Constitution, that Constitution gives all three of those branches their jobs. So
they don't care.
Well, if you don't have the Constitution, there is no three branches. There is no Obama as president. There is no Supreme Court. There is no legislature.
The Congress has proved that they're willing to relinquish all their power and control over to the executive branch, which was taken over, during the Carter administration when he appointed all those Trilateral Commission people in there. That was it. And you know what? They could come out and they could stop him on everything. They could when you control both the House and the Senate, you can really show what a lame duck means, because he couldn't be able to go golfing if they didn't give the okay. All right? He sure ain't going to pay for it out of his own pocket, but they gave him a blank slate to do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
think about it. Think about it. You know what? It used to be, at least during the Nixon administration, and he resigned, you had a feeling that there were some checks and balances, and if you do something that is clearly illegal, even the President of the United States is going to be held accountable for it. And that was a good feeling. See, no one's too big to fail. Now everyone gets a pass no matter what they do.
There's no
you whacked
accountability.
Muammar Gaddafi? That's okay. You got Stevens killed over in Libya? Oh, that's okay. You know,
but you know whose fault it is, though, Scott? It's all of our fault.
I don't think so.
We are not paying enough attention. We put them in office, you know, and then everybody says, well, my congressman is okay. It's everybody else's congressman that messes up. In the meantime, you got people in there 40 years, 35 years. You know, Harry Reid, he says, well, I'm retiring. He's still there. And then he says, well, I'm not going to be gone for another 24 months or 22 months or however long he's got left. Well, then why are you announcing it now? Is that a message to somebody? Okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah, you know what? It's a message. It's saying, hey, China, if you want me to stay in doing your dirty work and trying to get things like the Bundy Ranch for you, I better see some bribe money coming my way.
Yeah, well, he's got all kinds of scandals
going on. I think I deserve a 5% raise here, Ching Mang Pao.
Yeah, well, it got back as like 2006.
And you know,
was in hot water
he's just going to put Chuck Schumer in there anyway. I mean, it's like a younger, more obnoxious version of himself.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, somebody duffed him up really good. But,
yeah,
I
was telling you about that when it happened, remember? I said, I guarantee some mob guys were supposed to get some deals, and he promised them and they didn't, and they pounded him for it.
Yeah, well, he took millions from the Chinese. Seven-figure payoff on a suspicious land deal.
Yakuza mafia.
Yep,
Japanese
and he made over $1 million on selling property he didn't own. And
just think of that alone, okay? Just think of that alone. Do you think people could have got away with that in the 70s? Selling people's private land that they had in their family for 100 and something years to the communist Chinese?
Right.
Can you imagine if a congressman would have got caught doing that in the 70s? He probably would have been doing the perp walk.
Reid did it in 2012.
That's another Glenn Beck thing I love. You know, he came out and was playing that race card saying Bundy was a racist because they took something out of context that Clive Bundy said, and Beck was siding with the government and Harry Reid.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm seeing that most of these scandals that Harry Reid's been involved in, he's been protecting his sons, like that Chinese deal. That was a green energy client of a Nevada law firm run by his son, Rory. And then in 2013, he was again named to Judicial Watch's most corrupt politician for taking more than $130,000 in illegal campaign funds from a shady donor, Harvey Whittemore. And he eventually went to jail. Whittemore hired 4 of the senator's sons at a law firm, which he served as a senior partner. And then more recently, Reid abused his authority to pressure the Department of Homeland Security to expedite a $115 million foreign investors visa deal, critical to his son's casino client. So maybe it was his sons that messed him up. But let me tell you something, how you know that he got duffed up. All right, you want to know how you know that he got beat up? Why isn't he suing the equipment company?
You know he got beat up because his eyeball looks like it's been hanging out of its socket for 3 weeks.
That eyeball's gone. If you look at the picture with the tape over it,
I hope it was.
You'll see the white in one eye. It's just a black hole.
You know what they're doing? They're setting up another generation of scumbags. You got Rory Reid. You got Beau Biden. You know, you got Chelsea Clinton. I mean, you got a whole new generation of scumbags getting ready to take over. And look what happened to Clive Bundy's son. He's in prison. He must have sneezed wrong on the sidewalk or something, you know.
Well,
I mean, a regular criminal makes, these guys make regular criminals look like Boy Scouts.
I saw a thing, petty criminals go to jail. The real good ones go into politics.
And you know what? It's just like emails. The only buddy that gets hurt by emails is you or I, or somebody that's applying for a job, and someone looks in and says, "Oh, you wrote something. You like to go to Chick-fil-A and have a sandwich. Well, you anti-gay right-wing nut." You know. But if you're a Clinton or you're a Lois Lerner or anybody else, you can use your government account to solicit prostitution in Paraguay, and it's okay because no one's going to see him anyway. you know?
Yeah, really. You know, and then we got even more conflict of interest. Remember when they hired the new CMS chief, when they threw the other one out because she was cooking the books there? Well, this guy's name is Andy Slavitt. When he reported for work as Deputy Administrator of the Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services last June 10th, he pocketed at least $4.8 million in tax-free income from a major healthcare company, major companies, actually. According to a financial disclosure form obtained by the Daily Caller, it says on June 27th, he sold additional stock he personally held, raising his total windfall from the health industry to $7.2 million. United Health Group was Slavitt's most recent private sector employee. You all know who United Health Group is, right? The financial disclosure document permits the public to examine for the first time is his relationship with United Health Group. It says the agency initially issued a categorical denial to the Daily Caller that Slavitt had sought and received a special certificate of divestiture. That's a loophole which allows him to indefinitely defer capital gains taxes on the sale of millions of dollars in equities. But when the D.C. produced two certificates of divestiture issued to him, both dated July 9th, and one was to his wife, Lana, and they were signed by the Office of Government Ethics General Counsel David J. A. Paul. The agency backtracked. The special certificates permitted Slavitt to sell 23,711 shares of United Health Group stock and avoid capital gains taxes on the transaction. Which one of you out there listening would get a waiver paying your capital gains tax on $7.2 million? None of us would. And
no. Well, you know, how about the woman that got almost $250,000, over $250,000 to move 140 miles? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
You know, you're working at Walmart, and they say, hey, we want you to locate from Nebraska to Colorado. I'm going to pay you $250,000 to do it. I mean, I'd be doing backflips all the way to Target.
Hey, we're moving.
You know?
Yeah, get in the truck, we're moving.
What do you know, I'll drive backwards on a trike for $280,000. You know what I'm saying? But they can do this because, you know, they got a license to steal, so.
Well, that's not even the rich part of this thing. This guy Slavitt, July 11th, 2014, they gave him a rare ethics waiver. And it says here, the waiver by federal ethics officer Edward Swindle allowed Slavitt to immediately rule on official business that could affect United Health Group. They just gave him $7 million, let him sell his shares, didn't have to pay any taxes on it, and his first line of business is to come up with a ruling for United Healthcare. What a big coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
And he got an ethics waiver for it.
Oh. It's just amazing.
It is.
You know, isn't there a certain point you cross and somebody in some, you know, a position of power says enough's enough? But I don't think so, because the global mob is so big, you know, they can make you disappear in a blink of an eye. You know, you can't even be Joan Rivers and make a, you know, and make a joke.
Off the cuff
you're a comedian, make an off the cuff joke that, you know, Obama's gay and Michelle's a tranny. You know, a couple things that are probably true. I mean, but it was funny. It was funny like 30 years, you know.
Yeah.
And look what happens. A week later, she's, you know, pushing daisies.
Yeah. That's true. Hey, I wish Carol was here because Janet Yellen made an incredible, stunning admission the other day. She said that cash is not a good store of value. That's a heads up, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought she was going to tell everybody she was actually Captain Kangaroo in the 70s. But okay, I'll buy that one.
Yeah, cash is not a good store of value. Over at Zero Hedge, the guy who writes that, Tyler Durden, said, intended warning or unintended slip. After Alan Greenspan's confessional admission that gold is a currency, it is still, by all evidence, a premier currency. No fiat currency, including the dollar, can match it. That's what Alan Greenspan said. So we found it remarkable that during the question and answer after her speech today, that Janet Yellen, when asked about negative rates, admitted that cash is not a very convenient store of value, seemingly hinting at Bernanke's helicopter and there'll be no deflation in the U.S. ever. Well, Rick Santelli summed it up perfectly. He said deflation is clearly the boogeyman and the only thing that will save the middle class. So if cash is not very convenient store of value, what is? Biotech?
Nope. Carbon
society?
credits.
That's not a good store.
Carbon credits.
Of value either.
That's what that guy was talking about on that show I wanted you to listen to. He's talking about that after it goes to a one world currency, then they can just switch it over to a carbon credit sort of thing, and money is no monetary system anymore. It'll all be energy based.
Yeah, well, like Carol always says, gold is the asset to have. Right there, Janet Yellen and Alan Greenspan agree with her. Cash is not a good store or value. That means it's not going to be valued very long. And Greenspan said gold. So
once nothing backs your money, it's not worth anything. And
true.
We had so many punches to the face we should have known. I mean, Woodrow Wilson, 1913, and then Nixon takes us off the gold standard. So they could print as much money as they wanted and fund these unconstitutional wars. And look at that. The first time they go against the Constitution and pretty much have a war without declaring war and not being able to fund it, but finding a way around the Constitution to fund it, that was it. That was the beginning of the end, especially for the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got one more story, and I promised you I was going to end it on a decent note today. Well, I found this story about some very good parenting. We're not talking about bad parents now. We're talking about a good parent. This is from My Fox Memphis. An Alabama mother has quickly become an Internet sensation after she apologized for her misbehaving children on Facebook, and the post went viral. Keisha Smith Wood said she was upset to learn that her daughter and stepdaughter had been rude and obnoxious at a movie theater over the weekend. Smith Wood posted on Facebook that her son, who was also along with the girls at the theater, told her the girls ruined an evening for a mother and daughter. She went on to say that the girls are being punished, but she wanted to offer another apology. Smith Wood said the girls wrote an apology letter and offered to pay for the woman's next movie with money from their allowance. The entire Facebook post reads as this. This is a long shot, but I'm looking for a woman that was at the Tannehill premiere tonight seeing Cinderella at 7 p.m. I dropped my teenage daughter and stepdaughter and son off at the movie. My son later told me, much to my humiliation and embarrassment, that my girls were rude and obnoxious during the movie. The woman I'm looking for addressed them and asked them to be quiet, and they were disrespectful. After the movie, she approached my girls and told them that her husband had been laid off, and this was the last movie she would be able to take her daughter to for a while, and my girls had ruined that for her. If you are this woman, please message me. I can assure you that these girls are being strongly dealt with and appropriately punished. This rude, disrespectful, and awful behavior is unacceptable, and they owe you an apology. My husband and I are having them write your apology letter tonight, and we would like to pay for your next movie and snacks out of their allowance. Please message me if this is you. I apologize profusely for their disrespect. The Facebook post quickly spread, and eventually the mother, Rebecca Boyd, saw it. The two sides connected, and the story reached a happy conclusion. You don't see a lot of that these days, Boyd told AL.com. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department posted the following message Sunday morning. For all those who are wondering, the mother, with great parenting skills, did find the person she was looking for. They have been in touch with one another, and all is being set right. Nothing but grace and class on the part of both of these ladies. So, ladies, that's the way to handle it. Congratulations. See, I told you I had a good story.
Yep. Pretty good. It's amazing anybody cares anymore, about being polite.
Yeah, well, see, there are good people out there, so we can't.
There is. And there's more than there are bad. It's just that,
That's right.
Blood
just the
sells
bad make
with
the
the
headlines.
news. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're good, no one's going to hear about you. If you're bad, you're going to have headlines all over the place for days and weeks and months. But right there, congratulations, lady. Good job. You have any closing comments for our guests?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Well, then let's just say goodnight to everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. That's all the time we have for today, and we hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening, everybody who called in to listen and who are in our chat rooms, thank you so much. To our guest correspondent today, JoJo, thank you very much for that medical information. Special thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Lynn, Anna, AstroTurf, and as always, an extra special thank you to my co-host, Scott. Stay tuned to PRN all week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our great lineup of fantastic shows. And on Sunday, don't forget, from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Luca Zanna takes over the microphone. We love you, America. Moretti Underground, out.